Good morning, Devils fans, as we have our third straight loss, 6-3 to the Winnipeg Jets. Gonna tell you, I don't think it was the worst of games, but we have the same things that have been plaguing us basically all season, continued along in this one. But the scoreline really doesn't tell the whole story, as has been the case really in these past few, where, in my opinion, it's been the other team's game breakers. In this case, Kyle Connor, the tied for the league lead in goal scoring, who really took over in this one, let it start to finish for Winnipeg. Going back a few games that started this to the Colorado Avalanche game where McKinnon takes over and wins the game. Common denominator, the best player on the other team, putting puck in the net and controlling the pace of play and really taking over in the back half of the third period. We're missing, obviously, our MVP and biggest game breaker in Jack Hughes. Arguably our second biggest one in Nico Hischier. At worst, you can say those are two of our top three guys that should be playing here. And yeah, that's really how it went. Our next up game breakers, which would be Brett and Timo, had pretty okay games. I thought Timo the better of the two. Obviously, he got his goal, and I'll talk a bit more about that here shortly when I run through the goals in this one. But that's kind of how it goes. When I said in the preview that Winnipeg is a very good, very strong 5-on-5 team especially, they showed that here. Goaltending has been mostly their issue, and they didn't get the strongest of goaltending, but they did get some very key saves, especially early on in the third period. And I was hoping that maybe this would be the first goalie steal of the season. Essentially, a game that you're mostly being outplayed in, even though that really wasn't the case in this one anyway, but that your goalie stands on their head and gets you a win that you probably didn't deserve. Well, we arguably deserved a win in this one, as the overall play was actually quite strong, but the goaltending, again, lets in definitely one, if not definitely two, that you would love to have back. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the overall gameplay and goals in this one. So the first period was actually a fairly strong defensive start for the team. I thought we played to our system quite well. We almost had a couple breakdowns, but the guys used their speed to get back and break up the plays, which is really what you want to see. We did have a strong save out of Schmid with the right pad save against Perfetti, which probably should have been a goal if Perfetti actually got enough wood on it, but instead he mostly shoveled it right back into Schmid. So some credit where credit is due, but even through the first period, which you can have said was our strongest one defensively, I thought Schmid was swimming a bit in this one. It wasn't the calm, cool, collected guy we knew from the playoffs last year. And kind of as the game moved along, that continued to be the case for Schmid. First goal against wasn't the most ideal of situations, as Kyle Connor, of course, pots a really, really beautiful shot in for Winnipeg there. And then pretty much right back to it on the power play. Puck rides up on ball stick, one of those unlucky, but that one's not even the worst of them, type goals. Boom, it's now 2-0. Devils find themselves down, not even halfway through a game, by multiple goals already. And the second period really was controlled by Winnipeg. We didn't score in the first, but I felt like we were, generally speaking, the better team, marginally, but still I think we had the better of the chances and kept it close, which away on the road, given the situation, I was very happy and content with that type of play. Winnipeg really turned it on and took over in the second period, even if we should have gotten out of that period tied, where power play shows up again, Timo Meier gets on the scoreboard. That I would call really our first lucky goal of the season. Yes, it was very similar to kind of their power play goal. Shot on net, deflects off a stick into the back, off of a defender's stick into the net. I'll take it. Timo, like I said, I thought played fairly well. He has now 11 points in his last 11 games, goals in 3 straight games. Can't really complain about the production that he is putting up, and he's stepped up in Jack's absence. I mean, he is putting a lot of pucks towards the net. He is controlling play, kind of. I mean, he is not the dominant bull of a force that is like 75% expected goal share or anything like that, but he's playing well. Not extraordinary, but very well enough. Brett also ends up with an assist, and I thought he had an okay game, but to me, he kind of disappeared later on into the game. But again, was not bad for him. Just he put a lot of weight on himself to try and take over some games here, and he hasn't quite done that yet. A point is nice, but would like to see some of those dominant 5-on-5 shifts out of Brett in this one as well. hopefully with the return of Jack. If it's not Thursday's game, it's looking like an almost definite return for the Rangers one. And then we can really start to grade out the boys when they are more properly slotted within the lineup. But let's continue on here with the Winnipeg game. So we flurry back. We start making the comeback. Probably should have gotten out of that second period tied, like I said. But instead, we let up a fairly late second period goal there. This is where, again, so the first goal, it was the bottom six out on the ice. Second goal is a penalty kill, which has not been the best for us. I said Winnipeg's power play hasn't been the best, so you would have liked to not have 2 power play goals against. We did. But this third goal against was 5-on-5, and again, it was our bottom 6 out there on the ice. Was it really on them? Not entirely, but they really mostly get hemmed in here. It's been a struggle with Jack and Nico back. You move Mercer and McLeod down, and that really shores up the bottom 6. We have a couple guys that are probably playing minutes that they don't need to and should not be, and that's where this bottom 6 has been struggling throughout this entire stretch of our injuries. It's, not necessarily excuses, but it is just facts. But on the third goal, I'm going to actually put most of the blame on the defensive pairing of Luke Dougie. It is their first full game together. What happened is Luke's guy was left open, but Luke basically did a flip with Dougie where he was taking over Dougie's position on the ice. Dougie did not recognize that quick enough, even though I think he should have. Behind the net, he saw Luke in that position. He went to the right side of the net. He should have went to the left side to cover Luke's side since Luke had the right side of the ice. Instead, he goes to the right, leaves a guy wide open on the back door. Empty net goal, essentially, with Schmid pretty far out of the crease on the right side. Is that on the forwards for getting completely hemmed in? Is that line continue to do? Is that on the Dougie and Luke for not recognizing the D-switch that should have happened? Whether it was Luke taking over the side he shouldn't have, or Dougie not recognizing that and taking over Luke's ice? Or is it Schmid playing so far out he had no chance of getting over for the essential empty net goal? Pick your poison on that one. It just overall not great defending or goaltending, and that's kind of been a lot of the story there. Fourth goal against, we now move into the third period where we dominated. Oh my God, did we look so insanely good through the first half of that third period. Brendan Smith takes what I would say, if that was a hit against one of our players, I would have been fairly livid as well. That should have been a penalty, ended up getting called a penalty, but it wasn't called a penalty in the moment. Ehlers retaliates, and Winnipeg gets all the life in the building on that, what I will likely call this video, as what I was thinking of calling this video. Even before Danico said it, the momentum shift that caused on the ice completely changed the game. There was no way, the way we played through the first 10 minutes, basically, of that third period, if we kept up that play for the rest, there is no way we were not tying that game up. Instead, Smith and Ehlers goes to the box, which you should think would work out in our favor. Ehlers is much better than Smith. Gets Smith off the ice. Ehlers off the ice for 7 minutes. They were already playing down to 10 forwards. Ehlers off the ice, put them at 9 forwards. And instead, a couple minutes, I don't even think it was a couple minutes later, a fairly similar plays happen. We get a big hit on them. One of their guys retaliates, but they end up on the... Oh, no, they hit one of our guys, retaliate. We get the roughing, and we end up on the penalty kill. That's the frustrating stuff with the reffing. You don't call the first one, and we get a power play off of the Smith hit because of retaliation from Ehlers, and then you even that up with what they did with putting them on the power play later on, with a couple minutes later like that. Cool, sure, you kind of missed the Smith call, I get it. Instead, you evened it up with the Smith call in the moment when you guys held it up. I'm not going to complain too much on that one. It wasn't called on the ice, but I completely get it. It should have been. That was, was not a great hit by Smith there. So you want to calm the game down. You say, no, this should just be 5-on-5. We're just going to even it up, sure. But then do the same on the next call, which was not exactly the same, but it was plenty similar enough where you could have evened it up again, do some 4-on-4 play. But instead, you give them the power play. Connor, again, scores. Yeah, not great. Siegenthaler lost an edge behind the net. Should have been an easy clear, instead it wasn't. Holla almost gets a clear at the blue line, causing the guys to collapse, thinking we're getting the clear. Instead, it's not, and they hold the puck in. Puck moves over because we shifted over, thinking the play was moving into transition. Connor's wide open, and he, top goal scorer in the league, is not missing that shot. It was a beautiful one, too. God, that man can shoot the puck. 4-2 Winnipeg, and then the momentum completely shifts for the next 5 minutes. Plus, I think it wasn't until almost just a few minutes left, we do get another power play, which looked good. Mercer, gets the whiff into the shot. makes it 5-3, but by that point, it was pretty much out of reach. But we kept trying, chugging along, and then they get the 6-3 empty net, which I don't care about empty net goals even a little bit of an iota. So that was really the game. We played a very close, very strong defensive game. The first period was what you would love on a road game with no Jack and Nico. Winnipeg got the better of the play in the second. Should have left it tied, down 1. It's okay. We could have survived. Came out flying, dominant to start the first half of that third period. We keep up that play. No chance we don't tie it. Instead, refs kind of do some reffing things, which it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the worst reffing in the world, but it's just one of those, they completely shift the momentum. Obviously, Winnipeg took advantage of that themselves, and we let it happen. We put ourselves in the position to let that happen, but when you even up the one call, you got to think you have to even up the second one. So that's a little frustrating, but is what it is. Their game breaker broke the game. Our game breakers were not in the game. And Schmid, probably 2 of those gotta be saved. That 5th goal, I think I skipped over it with the Kyle Connor power play, but the 5th goal, they get basically in transition, ball gets wedged against the boards, they pass it back out, and Schmid has to have that. Schmid has to have that shot and save it, keep it 2 goals. We get the power play. It's only a 1-goal game now. Much more manageable of possibly having the comeback. Instead, empty netter makes it 6-3. So to me, the goaltending's been definitely the biggest issue. I will take the defensive lapses because sometimes you just need a big save, and we really haven't gotten one of those yet. We finally got our first even somewhat fluky goal, even though it was a clean shot on net and you get a bounce like that, and that's been our flukiest one yet. We really haven't had any sort of really crazy ping pong, puck just drops perfectly to us and it goes in type ones. But yeah, we need a goalie still at some point here. I don't know what the plan is. In-season goalie trades are basically impossible to find. Do we get a defenseman to kind of shore that up a little bit? Sure, I think it'll help marginally. I don't think it's our biggest issue, to be honest. We could just get some steady goaltending. But maybe we just get Jack and Nico back. Jack here, and if not next game, the one after, and we just start outscoring our problems again and figure it out by the trade deadline. That's really it, I think, on this one. Individual players, top 6 played well. Again, they're continuing to play well. They're producing on the power play. The second power play unit also did well. You can't complain too much about the top 6. We scored 3 goals. The bottom 6 did get the 1 back on our second goal of the game with Marino scoring his first. Shout out to Marino, who I said has been kind of lighting it up a bit more offensively, has been showing some flair there. Defensively, I think he hasn't been the complete shutdown guy he was last year, but he's been well enough. The pairing with him and Siegenthaler played a good game. Siegenthaler has the blown tire behind the net on the PK, and they score again. He's not been the best on the PK, but he has been strong 5-on-5. So maybe we do bring in the defenseman to kind of shore up the PK a bit. But Brendan Smith's been our best defenseman on the PK. He was out for that one. It all kind of just fell apart there in the middle of the third period, starting with the Smith hit, which wasn't called, but then was called, but then they got to also, I already rambled on, I'm not going to go into it again, but it was just a bit frustrating on that one. So I actually thought 5-on-5 Ball Smith looked pretty decent. Not great. Ball had some really good plays, and then obviously the 5th goal against wasn't his best, losing the puck there on the forecheck against, getting crunched in the boards. Not the best look, but I thought otherwise he had a fairly strong game. The bottom 6, we really need Nico and Jack back to push McLeod and Mercer down to make our bottom 6 the strength that it was supposed to be, and not this gaping hole of a weakness that it has since Jack and Nico have been out. So yeah, I think Luke Dougie looked really good, except for the 1 goal. Was that the 3rd one? So we'll see. Jack will be back soon, and we can really start seeing where we're at. What is it? 2 points out of a playoff spot. Not even 15 games in, or just at 15. Tomorrow, next one's 15. Whatever. I'll preview the game tomorrow, Thursday, for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Maybe we'll get some news on Jack saying if he is or isn't. Maybe he'll at least travel, and it'll be a game day decision, and then we'll go from there. So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, as always, and forever. It's going to be just fine, everyone. Let's go Devils. Oh. Forgot to use the remote here. Should be. Oh.